At a volcanic hotspot in fair Lamington where we lay our scene, two families, Basaltic-Ewe and RomatreeEucalette, have been warring for generations, leaving 3 layers of blood strewn across the land.
Wait a second. There might be 3 layers, but they're not blood that's strewn across the land. Millions of years ago, a volcano had 3 eruptions. The first eruption left a layer of basalt, and the second eruption left a layer of rhyolite. The third left another layer of basalt. And now today, because basalt erodes faster, we have both basalt and rhyolite soils.
For years, the families had accumulated their own forms of wealth, and a clear divide separated their territories. Over time, a rivalry formed, leading to many conflicts stemming from their differences.
Stringer feet!
Let me explain. The wealth of the Basaltico family lies in its rich and deep soils that contain many elements that are essential to plant growth, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and the iron, which makes its soil a natural rusty red color. Whereas the wealth of the rhyolite family refers to its rich sunlight that is able to penetrate its canopy and reach its floor, where lies the neutral poor soil and the many dark brown soils. And this is where all the adaptations of the different forest life began.
The Basaltic-Ewes were tall and mighty compared to the petite but sturdy RomatreeEucalettes. Nobody could have imagined that love would cross this divide. One day, a curious bouillon named Romatree broke through the canopy and spotted a young gum tree photosynthesizing in the morning sun. Her name was Eucalette.
What soft, what light through yonder canopy breaks. It is the sun, and Eucalette is a tough-leaved sclerophell. Arise, fair Eucalette, and kill the envious understory, whose consecrated bark is already dry and charcoaled with grief, that the oil-riddled leaves ignite in towering flames. Be not as tall as with my girthy stature. Her thick vertical leaves are but palish green, and none but sclerophylls do bear it. Cast it off, it is my love, oh, it is her luscious carpel. Oh, that she knew her oil's potency. She speaks, yet she says nothing. What of that? Her fierceful gumnuts discourse. I will answer it. I am too sturdy. My soil's too fertile. 'Tis not to me she speaks. 2 of the fairest gumnuts in all the forest, having some business, do entreat her unique evolution. What if they were there, they on the ground, to roll in the serotinous pods till the litter fuels blaze? The brightness of her fire-manifested glory would shame those ligonless saplings. As daylight doth her photosynthesis, her gumnuts in heaven would throw the airy region screams so bright that kookaburras would sing and think it were not night. See how she leans her bark-insulated meristem upon that ground. Oh, that I could koala upon her elongated branch, that I might touch her taper weeds.
Against all odds, the drip-tipped, broad-leafed Romatree fell in love with the water-conserving Eucalette, who daintily held her thin leaves perpendicular to the ground. How could a Basaltic-Ewe, who dreamed only of being tall, fall in love with someone so content to be short? And she, too, was charmed by his mossy complexion, dark leaves, and bodacious buttresses.
Hold on. Well, it may be true that some rainforest trees do have bodacious buttress roots. The different adaptations of the 2 forests, as Cody mentioned, are due to different limiting factors. Rainforests are limited by their access to light, so their trees generally grow taller to reach the canopy. They have broad leaves that they hold horizontally to maximize sun exposure, with drip tips to encourage water runoff. Their root systems are shallow, and they use buttress roots to stabilize the extra weight added by epiphytes. The availability of nutrients and greater moisture retention allow for greater biodiversity, more biomass, and more dense foliage.
On the other hand, sclerophyll trees like Eucalette hold their thin, lignin-filled leaves
she is very short, as there are fewer nutrients in the soil, and she does not need to grow as tall to reach the ubiquitous sunlight.
Rumors of their love spread like spores in the wind. The diverse patamelons hopped across both lands, spreading the news they heard from the epiphytes, lianas, koalas, pythons, and ferns, all the way to the gum trees and back to the Booyong territory. Then they made a plan. Romatree would use the birds and the powerful wind to spread his seeds in order to be with his beloved. But alas, there was a storm and the birds were blown off course. After waiting multiple days without hearing from Romatree, Eucalette got paranoid and assumed her lover had died. She thus decided to burn herself to meet him in the leaf litter. During a night storm, she allowed herself to be struck by lightning, hoping to be with her Romatree in eternity. As her oils burst into flames, Romatree peeked his top leaves above the canopy just in time to see her ignite. He felt as though a termite carved a hole in his heartwood. As the storm winds shook his canopy, he loosened the grip his shallow roots had of the soil and allowed himself to topple to his death. That was the only way to be with her again. Many moons passed as the charred land began to regrow. Little did young Eucalette know that her death would not be permanent. Her meristem remained intact, and from it she blossomed again. When she was finally tall enough to see into the basaltic-hued land, she saw that where her beloved had once stood was a gap in the dense foliage. She lowered her gaze to see the rotting remains of her Romatree. Too dry to shed the tears she desperately needed to, she had to carry on and grow. Eventually, her sorrow would become too great, and she would ignite in passionate sorrow every 7 to 10 years, when the gap where he once stood was again visible.
So as dramatic as that ending is, there is some truth to it. In the rainforest, trees are most often damaged by wind, whereas in sclerophilic forests, fire is the most prevalent disturbance. The death of a large tree in the rainforest allows room for other saplings to race to the top of the canopy. The lack of moisture, in addition to the dry leaf litter, flammable eucalyptus oil, give way to an environment perfect for brush fires. However, it is through these fires that eucalypts release their seeds and start regrowth. This usually happens naturally about 7 to 10 years.
If you don't believe my story, take a trek through the eucalyptus forest. You'll see the charred marks on the trunk of the oldest tree. The rivalry and division between the two families remain clear even today.
Just gonna stand there and watch me burn.
But
That's alright, because I like the way it hurts.
Be audacious! Be audacious! Be audacious! Be audacious! Yeah! Second time's charm! Woo!